Well, this happened in December of 1944, whenever the Germans broke through, and we had to get up at night and go up and try to rescue some of our divisions that were surrounded in Bastogne in the Battle of the Bulge. And we went in there, I believe it was on the 17th of December, and so we were trying to work our way around in the complex there, but we got surrounded by the Germans, and we were without food and ammunition. But they had some tanks and things on the railroad spurs there that they wanted to destroy, and I was designated to go down and destroy those tanks. So there's 11 of us went out one night to destroy those tanks. And what happened, we walked into an ambush of about 1,000 Germans. They were there to get those tanks too. And so they opened fire on us, and we were in a kind of a plantation, a pine plantation, and they could see where we could not see. But anyway, I had a machine gun, and they killed my gunner, and finally got the machine gun set up and got it working. And the Germans were shooting us because every third shell that I had was a tracer, and they could pick me out. And I had my buddy with me that was beside me, and he kind of took his helmet and dug a little hole kind of in the ground. We didn't have any shovels at that time, and we got down as low as we could. And so directly I knew that he and I were about the only two left. I had this bullet to go through this helmet, and I felt a sting in my head. Well, if you ever had your finger to touch a raw wound, you know, it's got a little salt in it. Well, I reached back to touch that, and when I did, I found, the first time I put my hand up here and found these holes, and I thought I shot right through the temple. Well, what I wanted to tell him was to tell my wife I loved her. As much as I love my mother and father, I never thought about them. But I said to this friend of mine, I said, Yerke, I said, I'm hit. He said, where you hit? I said, in the head. And he said, oh, don't die on me, you know, see. And about that time, I felt a little warm blood running down the back of my neck. And the bullet had just grazed the inner liner here, and just enough to make my head bleed. And so I told him, I said, well, I'm not shot through the head, but I'm wounded. And he said, well, let's get out of here. So we were going to get out of there as quick as we could, but we didn't know it. The Germans were retreating at the same time. And when we stood up, but one German was still close by because he said this guy was in 4 foot of me the next morning when he went back after I was wounded. And I guess he threw this concussion grenade because it blew me up. And I lost a lot of blood. But anyway, he picked me up and carried me out. And then he went back the next morning and got this helmet and brought it to me. And so I've held on to it. But when I went to be discharged in Fort Bliss, Texas, they wanted me to pay for this helmet, which I did because it was Army property. And I did, I paid for it, but I keep this helmet in my home. And when I get kind of a low limb, I go look and say, buddy, if this had just been a 1/4 inch more, you wouldn't be here today. So it makes me kind of realize that life is very important.